All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Zaleski Sports Show. Jason Zaleski here. Steve May is right there. And we're both here ready to rock on this Monday morning, April 6th. And I don't know, Steve, I've lost track already. I don't know how many days of the shutdown that I've endured so far. I've not endured them well. Bored out of my mind overall. Funny, we talked about it during last week's show. The official start of high school spring sports for a number of teams across the state was on Thursday last week. And that was going to be our first day of getting back at it. We were going to be at the Woodside in Mauston or Wisconsin Dells. Forget which one, because it doesn't even matter right now which one it was, because the whole darn thing is on pause right now. And we've seen over the last week or so, there's been a few states that have said, all right, the spring sports are done. We're not coming back. We're not coming back to school. And oftentimes, no matter what it is, if it's a new flavor of Doritos, if it's a new clothing style, whatever, it just takes a few to do it, a few to eat those Doritos or to wear that shirt or drive that car, and all of a sudden it sweeps the nation. Kind of like this virus, I suppose. Sweeps the nation, and that goes both ways, good and bad, and I consider this one to be bad because after a couple states now have said we're just not coming back into session, it seems that it's just a matter of time before that trend sweeps the nation as well. I hope, though, unlike Cool Ranch Doritos or the new whatever Supreme shirt that the kids want to put on and spend $300 for a shirt, by the way, hope that this one doesn't sweep the nation like those things do. I'm just not sure, though. Right now, I guess the best I could put on is a 50-50. And, Steve, I'll give it to you here for a moment. The WIA, though, you go to their site and they say, hey, we've got all the hope in the world. Yep. And I guess that's what we have to have.
Yeah. As you mentioned, those states that have canceled everything, Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Kansas, Oklahoma, Vermont, and Virginia, actually New Mexico and not Vermont, as all these other states just holding out hope to be able to get something going in the fall or in the spring, but just wanting to be able to put something out there. But with each day, each week that these governors and the athletic corporations or athletic associations keep on pushing back the stay-at-home orders, and they keep on pushing these, we're not going to have school until this time, we're not going to have school until this time. Just keeps on pushing back, because we say it just about every week. You have to at least have 7 days of baseball and softball practice before you can even think about playing, and they can't be consecutive days. So you can't have 7 consecutive days of practice. And so even if you get back to school on May 4th, you can't start games until the 8 days after school starts. And so that goes into mid-May, which we talked about last week. The first round of the baseball and softball playoffs, or at least the first round of the softball playoffs last year, were May 14th, and that's when these seasons would start. And so much like you and I hear, a lot of kids, a lot of sports fans just holding out hope that something can happen this spring and it doesn't interfere with what might happen this summer with Legion Baseball or even the high school football all-star game that happens at Oshkosh Oshkosh University every year that brings all these great high school football players together. They're still raising money for the MAC Foundation and all this, and so they're still holding out hope that they'd be able to play that game in June.
It would have been the first time that anybody in the state of Wisconsin would have played a competitive sporting contest since March 12th. That's when the whole thing hit the end of the road, hit the bricks at that point, and so we're almost a full month now, a week. From now, we will have been a full month without high school sports or college sports, professional sports. The whole works, right? I mean, the whole thing got shut off, and I still go back to Rudy Gobert and some of the antics that he played. It was a Monday press conference after a game, And I'm not sure what I didn't listen to the press conference because I was just so disgusted by what I saw. But I believe something to the effect of was asked of, about the virus and his concerns. And he was, his intention was to say, I don't have any concerns about this. We're just here to play basketball. I don't have any concerns. And then something like, as a matter of fact, I'm going to lick my fingers and rub it all over all these microphones and your personal recording devices. And he did that, and then 48 hours later, it was he was sick.
Yeah.
Couldn't make the game, and then at that point, the whole thing came tumbling down within about 24 hours, including high school sports here in Wisconsin. That's that's the timeline, and as Steve said, it would be the best case scenario.
Yep.
We believe here at Zaleski Sports for high school sports to start up again no earlier than May 14th, and then. I think then you would also have to have some sort of a parallel track with the schools that come back in session, that they're now going to go to the end of June. I mean, the school maybe would have to be extended, although some seniors are playing their sports on a regular season, on a non-virus season after they've concluded classes anyway. So the two don't necessarily go hand in hand, but I think there would have to be some alignment with that as well, and that's going to take the governor of our state and other legislators to come together on that. It seems like there's a lot that has to line up for this thing to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we were kind of joking about it last week off the air, and I just saw something on Facebook about it. The difference between having sports in April last year or the last couple of years compared to now, holding out hope that it doesn't happen, that we get a storm, but this would be the perfect time to have athletics and not worry about snow, not worry about as much rain. And it's perfect weather to play outdoor sports, track and field, soccer, whatever, what say you, but it isn't coming around this year, and we can just hold out hope that this weather this year holds out for what we might have next spring as well.
First time in a long time that sports would not have been encumbered by the weather, and of course now it's totally encumbered by something much worse than a snowflake, as it turns out. All right, so one way that sports could continue, whether it's high school or something else, in a quicker fashion than you otherwise might expect, would be if you had no fans in attendance. Mm-hmm. It was that Thursday, March 12th, that I talked about, where the ruling at that point was you could have up to 250 people in the same place at the same time. That was considered an allowable number, which was a huge decrease. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. It was girls' state basketball that happened that day, which you would have had a couple thousand people inside the Resch. It was boys' sectional semifinals, which you would have had somewhere near 1,000 people, maybe more, depending on the game and the location and the division. So 250 was quite a drawback. Yeah. People were complaining. People were throwing a fit. You could invite 88 people per school to attend the game. Each player or coaching staff member was given 4 tickets, and those 4 tickets, that was the Willy Wonka golden ticket, and everybody wanted to get one, yep. And most people didn't, and so people were howling about I couldn't get in. Now at this point, if you let 250 people in, it would seem like a rush, just a human body rush to get in, and so now to think that probably the only way these things get back in the next 60 days, sports that is no fans in attendance. Major League Baseball is thinking about that. Some of the other sports are thinking about that, and high school would be in that mix as well. So let's talk a little bit, Steve, about what sports would look like without fans in attendance.
Well, and as you mentioned, with the amount of people, the recommendation is no more than 10 people. Baseball,
today it is. Yeah.
Now. And so with baseball, you have 18 players, you have 4 umpires, you have all these coaches and everybody else. But as you mentioned, playing games without fans, it'd be surreal at times, but we saw it a couple years ago. The Baltimore Orioles, and I think they were playing the Chicago White Sox in Baltimore when they were having riots, and they didn't have they didn't let any fans into Camden Yards.
Yeah,
and it was kind of weird to hear the announcers after the game say you had to call a baseball game like you had to call golf because there was just nobody around. You had to whisper, and so obviously they probably wouldn't play in a Major League Baseball stadium. There has been talk about going back down to Arizona or Florida to play in spring training facilities. But even these baseball players, basketball players, obviously they have state-of-the-art facilities around them, maybe even in their house. But nothing is like the real thing. And to be able to get these, obviously, position players, batters, and everything are much different than pitchers. They have to have maybe a couple weeks to get their arms back and ready to go. We already saw Chris Sale have to have Tommy John surgery, and he didn't even pitch this year.
Right.
And so, just a lot going into it as well with players' conditioning, but not to have fans is just a practice. I mean, just to think of that as obviously a lot of these. Baseball teams and basketball teams really probably don't practice a whole lot on their off days, but just to be able to go into a baseball stadium, baseball park, and not to have any fans, I think we talked about it a little bit last week. That's what a lot of these people get their energy from is from the fans. Watched a couple of WWE matches. They have no fans, and they're still wrestling, but that's what they get their energy from, and so it's kind of weird at the same time to not have any fans. So just got to do what's best for the players and for everybody in the leagues.
Where these rumors are coming from about how a season would proceed, and rumors is the wrong word. It's where are these thoughts coming from? Well, the thoughts are apparently rooted in the idea that that these testing kits will be available soon. In a lot of them that can give a result within 5 minutes or a matter of minutes, less than 30 for sure. The phrase I keep hearing is 5 minutes, but even less than half an hour. And how that why they've got to this idea is because of the hope that those tests are available. And then what would happen before every game that's played is everybody has to take that test. You can't get on the field unless you take that test. So you're kind of taking a physical every day, and except this way, it's a small drop of blood that gets put on a tester. They prick the tip of your finger. We won't get into the medical show here today, but it's a pretty simple process. I think everybody can digest it. You prick the tip of the finger, you dab it onto the tester, the strip, the cotton strip that's inside of the kit. And it gives a result within a matter of minutes, less than 30. Some are saying as quick as 5 minutes. If you are proven negative for this virus, on the field you go. If you are, well, then you're on the DL for 14 days. And really, it's kind of as simple as that. And the sports leagues are attempting, and they met with the president on Thursday night, I believe, or sometime late last week. And that's what they talked about a lot of is, because, of course, the president and many Americans, I would assume almost all, want this thing to go back to normal. Yeah. All right. In some way, shape, or form. And, of course, the economy is a big part of the normal. And some of the economy happens from people attending sporting events or watching them on TV. And there's a certain comfort, if we're not going to be allowed to attend them in person, there's still a certain comfort, a certain piece of normal that has to do with watching these events being broadcast online, on TV, whatever, a video broadcast coming from somewhere, from Zaleski Sports, ESPN, or somewhere in between. Yep. And so, Mr. President, here's where we think we can contribute to that, and that's what that discussion largely revolved around. And it was every major sporting league in the entire country, and it was everything. There were 20 different leagues that were represented in this meeting, and that's apparently what they were talking about is if we can get these kits and we can test our players and our coaching staff and umpires, groundskeeper, whoever it's going to be, a couple hundred people every game. We the sporting team, we the Green Bay Packers, we the Milwaukee Brewers, or whoever it is, we'll pay for the tests.
Yep.
That's where the money will come from. In return, the nation gets sports back. Everybody gets to have at least at 7:00 the game comes on, and they get to watch it. And that's where all these ideas are coming from. And so, of course, you can't test 40,000 fans coming into the baseball, into Miller Park, although you might want to, because that could certainly help with everything else that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just not feasible today. And so if there are sports in the next 45 days, that's how it happens, is that all these players get tested every single day before they go back on the field. And as two guys sitting here talking about sports, do it.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what we say, and it seems really simple. It's much more complicated than that. But if you're telling me we can have this son of a gun on the road in the next few weeks, do it. And what do you need from me? I'll help. I'll pay for a test. I'll run the camera at Miller Park. I don't care. Let's just get the thing going. And I think that's what we're going to find out.
Yeah.
If this whole system is feasible. Now, of course, there are biologists and scientists and microbiologists and virologists and all these other words I've learned in the past few weeks. I didn't know those before March 12th that are coordinating to see if this whole thing can happen. So that's what it would look like. From a high school sense, it's interesting. From high school sports, and we look at it here in central Wisconsin. Now, as we know it, and these are just facts, folks, this is just the way it is, there just aren't many people attending on a normal year anyway in person. It's too cold, it's too windy, it's too boring. I don't know, it just baseball, softball, track, soccer, generally speaking, don't have that same casual observer that wants to go to a football or a basketball game. They just don't. And so the attendance is down anyway, so we don't have to do a whole lot, or it's not that much of an ask, is a better way to say it, to tell the 30 people who would ordinarily be at the game to stay home, and your kids can tell you about the game. Every team, every high school team, no matter what it is in spring sports, golf, everything, the coaches have video they take, so I think there's a way to get that performance to be seen, but listen, we did sports before video, and everybody participated, and little Johnny and Susie came home, and they told mom, dad, grandma, neighbor, uncle, cousin, friend, sister, here's how I did today. And that's just how it was. Now, so have we become spoiled in that sense? Yes, because now everybody wants to see it. One of the reasons we got the camera here in the studio, because when the camera's not here in the studio, and we publish an audio broadcast of the show, there are this many people that listen. And when we put the camera over there to show us talking, we're saying the same words, Steve, but this is just the way it is. When we put the camera there and people can see us talking, the audience goes like that. It's crazy how it is, and apparently that's just what people like. So we do it. We put the camera over there, and those of you listening on 1320 AM WFHR and 1450 AM WDLB can also go and watch later if you want, and most people will watch the show rather than listen to it, it turns out. So for high school sports, and my very long-winded way of saying this is it doesn't seem like it's that long of a road to go down to get the high school sports back, because you only have to ask 30 or 40 people to stay home or tell them they can't come in one way or the other. And people like Zaleski Sports will be there. We'll broadcast as many as we can, and we will deploy everybody to get these games to be able to be seen. And we'll rotate around and make sure every school gets on once. And as the season winds to a close, you get to see all the best of the best and all that kind of thing. But as I said at the top, and we'll finish now. We'll start talking about something else. I think it all depends on, can the legislative bodies decide that school should come back? Because without school, there are no sports. And so it's paralyzing to me. It's debilitating. It's depressing. It's all that, because the people who don't like sports are right.
Yeah.
They are. Because if school doesn't happen, sports don't happen. And sports, in my world, come first.
Yeah.
But as I'm finding out in the real world, that's not necessarily the case, and that disappoints me. And maybe in the next new world, we'll change all that. All right. Moving on to NFL news. We've kept everybody up to date on the NFL, and the NFL draft is right around the corner. Again, today is April 6th, April 23rd. So that's just a couple weeks, 2.5 weeks away. We'll get to watch the NFL draft. But before that, there are some players that are still available, Steve, that can be acquired by your team. Whether it's whether you want them or not, they're out there. But they can be acquired by your team. I know the Packers, Devin Funchess, right, the wide receiver, just picked up. I don't know if we mentioned during last week's show, but to my knowledge, that was the most recent acquisition the Packers have made. And Steve will be here to tell me if there were some others between last week and this week. And before he fills us in on that, I'll again remind you that all the top free agents that were on the market a week ago, they're still there. Not a single one has been signed. And that tells you a couple things. And we mentioned them last week, and it remains true this week. Here are why. One is Cam Newton. He's the best... quotes, right? Best available player on the market. He's a 31-year-old crybaby quarterback is what he is, who is an average, slightly below average quarterback that had one really good year. They were 15-1 that year. They went to the Super Bowl and got beat. And he's been pouting ever since. So anyway, a couple reasons why these guys are still available. One is you're a pouting crybaby that is probably asking for too much money. You are asking for too much money. Or you're no good anymore. And sometimes it's a combination of all those. And we found out, Steve, that the number 2 ranked free agent available, Jadeveon Clowney, who I felt, and I said this during the broadcast last week, and I'll say it again if you weren't listening, listen up now. He is he's a bit player, I think. He's a system player. He needs help. He can't generate a one-on-one pass rush. I don't know that he has ever been able to in the NFL. In college, he could, and he's one of those guys too. And talking about video, he had a crushing hit on the Michigan running back that made all the videos everywhere. I mean, I don't know whatever was viral back when that happened, but whatever it was, he had a new record in views when he just obliterated that running back in the backfield, and everybody went crazy for Jadeveon Clowney since then. Up until 2 weeks ago. Now, nobody's crazy about him. Now, he reduced his asking price, but he's still signed. But, Steve, a lot of these guys probably going to have to reduce their price tag quite a bit.
Yeah, and the thing about these two, Cam Newton and Jadeveon Clowney, is that they've had some pretty, not serious injuries, but they've had injuries throughout their career. And what is happening now, as you mentioned, cutting down the price for Jadeveon, is that these teams can't see them. They can't get medical reports. They can't have them into their training facilities. And so those two are the two that you take a look at. But then you have Jameis Winston as well. And then a big one that is still out there, Everson Griffin, a former Minnesota Viking who has wreaked havoc on the Packers and the whole NFC North over the last couple of years. So he's a big name that's still out there. And Jimmy Ward, a safety from the 49ers. Just a handful of guys that are still back. But as you mentioned, for the Packers, signing Devin Funchess. Besides that, not a whole lot of transactions going on in the NFL last week. A couple of so-so stories. Blake Martinez and Kyle Fackrell taking jabs at the Packers, saying, hey, we got told to do this because of the Smith brothers on the edge. They said clean up what those guys don't do, and so both of them, Blake Martinez and Kyle Fackrell, going to the New York Giants, which, I mean, doesn't really. I mean, you get paid and you go to a team that is not very good. So, which a lot of these guys end up doing if they can't sign where they need to go and stuff like that. So we mentioned live sports. Obviously, the draft isn't guys going at each other, but as much as Roger Goodell gets thrown under the bus for things, this is one of the things that you got to tip your hat to him and the 31 owners, because Packers aren't owned. And so you got to tip your hat to Roger Goodell saying, we're going to put this on. It's not in Las Vegas. It's going to be mostly a studio show.
Right.
And the teams are going to be making picks from remote locations. And so that's one thing to look forward to if you're any sort of sports fan. Is that the NFL draft is coming up, as you mentioned, in 2.5 weeks.
Yep, it is. It is coming up. We'll go through as we bring today's show for a close. Steve, no matter what we do, this show always flies by here. And in an era of no sports, we're still going at it here. Keep that in mind, folks. Zaleski Sports still bringing it to you. All right, so the couple lists here I'm going to read through, and we'll wrap this up. One is. This was the best available free agents that were available in the market, and what's happened to them. We'll go through the top 10 on those. Number 1 ranked Dak Prescott, Dallas Cowboy quarterback. Franchise tag was the result there. Same thing happened to the defensive lineman for the Kansas City Chiefs, Chris Jones. Chiefs applied the franchise tag to him. Drew Brees coming into the offseason was number 3 ranked free agent. He re-signed with the Saints, $50 million for 2 years, and that'll be the last, you would presume, 2 years of his NFL career. And they may be good ones, though. The Saints are still pretty darn good. Tom Brady then comes in at number 4, and the Patriots, and we really knew it back around Thanksgiving that it was done, that it was over there in New England. New England still has no quarterback, by the way, so apparently they're going to hunt in the draft for a quarterback. But Tom Brady goes to the Buccaneers, $50 million for 2 years, same deal that Breeze got. A.J. Green, wide receiver for the Bengals, franchise tag was applied there. And Phillip Rivers, another quarterback on the move during the free agent period. He was number 6 ranked coming in, 38-year-old quarterback, and he's now an Indianapolis Colt as Andrew What's-His-Face decided a week before the season he was going to retire, even though he knew it long before that. And a lot of people still very upset at Andrew Luck. And I'm upset because the Twitter Captain Luck or whatever that is gone now, and that upsets me. All right, so Rivers now the Colts quarterback. Amari Cooper, wide receiver, ranked number 7. He stays with the Cowboys. The Cowboys spent a first-round draft pick on him, so they had to re-sign him. You can't just throw away a first-round pick for a year and a half of service. And he signed 5 years, $100 million. Chris Harris, defensive back, 30-year-old defensive back, went from the Broncos to the Chargers, 2 years, $20 million. Shaquille Barrett stayed with the Buccaneers, defensive end, franchise tag there. And then we come to our first unsigned on that list as number 10, Jadeveon Clowney. Taking a look at the draft as we got a few minutes left here. By the way, coming up here in about a week and a half, it'll be the week of the NFL draft, Zaleski Sports, and again, we'll use this word appropriately, exclusive interview. We say that we're mocking somebody. We know who it is that churned out the word exclusive when they were like the third one in line to interview somebody. There are some folks out there who just don't know what they're doing. Exclusive interview coming up here. It's already been conducted, but we're gonna launch that son of a gun the week of April 19th or 20th, whatever that Monday is. Tyler Biadasz, Amherst Falcon, Wisconsin Badger. He will be an NFL player, and we've got the interview with Tyler Biadasz coming up soon. Tyler said during his interview his goal was to be a day 2 pick. A lot of people, Steve, have Tyler somewhere in the 4th round.
Yep.
As the best center in the country and former now Wisconsin Badger.
Yeah. It's really kind of surreal to look at. Because I went to school with Tyler. I mean,
you were 3 years ahead of him, 3 or 4.
4. Yeah. So when I graduated, he was he became a freshman in high school.
Sure.
The first year I was out of school, but just seeing him progress and the kind of man that he has become is still one of the nicest people you'll ever meet.
No doubt.
In person, I saw him during the football season this last fall. Came back to Amherst, saw the brand new field, and just loved it. Just still one of the nicest guys. His family is fantastic. But as you mentioned, he was the top center in the NFL, winning the Remington Award as the best center. And we talked about it a little bit. Being an offensive lineman at Wisconsin really helps you out a lot too, because especially as you met Travis Frederick. retiring from the NFL. Joe Thomas, an all-pro, most likely a Hall of Famer, coming out of Wisconsin. They just keep on turning him out. And he had mentioned at the combine that if he is a center, he'll play center. But anywhere on the interior offense line, he is willing to go learn more as much as he can. And just knowing that somebody from Amherst, a town of 1,000 people, is heading to the NFL is just remarkable and a fantastic story.
So again, most projections have Mr. Biadasz somewhere in the 4th round, so we'll keep an eye out for that. A lot of talk coming up yet, and we're going to really start to zero in on the NFL draft starting next week. Probably do a full 30 minutes of draft next week and the week after, get you ready for the NFL draft. Part of getting you ready for that is some of those top picks. I don't think these are going to change, Steve. Joe Burrow, the Bengals draft first. They need a quarterback. Yeah. They're probably the most quarterback-needy team right now, aside from maybe the Patriots. And so we'll see what happens there. But Joe Burrow slated to go first overall to the Bengals.
Yeah, and then once he gets drafted by Cincinnati, then we'll see what happens to Andy Dalton. Are they going to get rid of him? Are they going to trade him? Or what's going to happen to Andy once Joe Burrow gets drafted, and then we'll go from there. So,
yeah, the Bengals seemingly done with the red rifle. We will find out, though. All right, Chase Young, he's projected to go second out of Ohio State. I should have said Joe Burrow, Louisiana State. Chase Young, defensive end, and he's got all the rage right now that Jadeveon Clowney did about 10 years ago. We'll see what can happen there. A team's a little It's always interesting taking a defensive end. That's a lot of pressure on a guy who needs 3 to 6 others to participate well around him for him to be successful. So a tough one there, defensive end. Let's see here. Jeff Okudah, cornerback, defensive back from Ohio State, slated now to go somewhere in that top 5, along with Jedrick Willis, offensive lineman from Alabama, and Tua from Alabama, coming off an injury, and but still slated to be somewhere in the top 10. This particular list I'm reading shows him as top 5. More NFL talk coming up next week. We may even bring in a third here as an expert. We'll see. We'll see what happens with that, too. More to come on that. More to come. And you can follow us on Facebook at Zaleski Sports and ZaleskiSports.com. Steve Maves there. Jason Zaleski here, telling you to have a great week. Go Sports.